Tom Cotton. He didn't exactly give me an answer, but you will. Which Trump is going to show up tonight? You know what I mean by that. Which Trump?
I think at the beginning of the debate, the Trump who will show up will be the calmer Donald Trump. He knows inherently after the 2020 first debate against Joe Biden that the other Donald Trump is not the one that's a winning formula. The question's going to be, will he be able to continue to maintain that approach through questioning by David and Lindsay and through any comments that Vice President Harris makes in his direction? And that'll be the key to how he performs tonight.
And you and I were talking, you helped prepare him for those 2016 debates against Hillary Clinton. He told you that he had respect for Hillary Clinton, that Hillary Clinton was smart as you were preparing. What about Kamala Harris? We hear not the same.
Well, certainly he's not saying that publicly in any way. And I can tell you that in 2016, he would regularly say during the many debate prep sessions that we had with him that Hillary Clinton was smart, that she was a good debater, that she was not to be taken lightly. And I don't think there was ever a moment in 2016 where he took her lightly. I do think he took Joe Biden lightly in 2020. And clearly during the prep sessions that I had with him, it was very, very difficult to get him to focus on what Joe Biden might or might not do in that first debate. And I think his performance in part—
What's up, everybody? I am going to be giving commentary. I just have my video camera off while I'm getting everything started. Make a drink. You got about 5.5 minutes till we get started. Let's have some fun. But yeah, I'll be right back. Just kind of setting stuff up. I gotta fix my camera because it's not in focus. And then gotta go get my drink supplies. So I'll be right back.
All right, Chris Christie, you'll be watching with us. Martha?
And we have about 6 minutes left before the debate, so let's bring in Donna Brazil, formerly of the DNC, and Reince Priebus, the RNC. Welcome to both of you. And Donna, let's start with you. You have said that Kamala Harris has to own the future, but she also has to own the past. So how does she do this?
It's quite easy. Because I do believe that in talking about the future, you draw from your past. You draw from your past experiences. She draws from how she was raised, the values that was instilled in her as a young lady. Look, she is steady on her feet, still in her resolve. And tonight she should talk to the American people, sit in their living rooms, go to their kitchen table and say, look, I have some ideas that I want to share with you. There's so much that we have done together over the last 4 years, but here's what I think we can do together over the next 4 years. Be positive in her approach and really remind the American people that we don't want to go back to the chaos and the confusion, the disaster that made, of course, the American people go out in droves in 2020 to fire the former president. Say, I want to be a president that lead all Americans. I want to keep us strong and secure, and here's the plan that I want to share with you tonight.
And Donna, I of course meant Biden. She has to own up to the Biden administration's any mistakes they made too, and Donald Trump is going to go after her on that.
You know, Martha, they made mistakes. Donald Trump and Mr. Pence made mistakes. But you know what? If we focus on our mistakes, we won't focus on all of the good things that we could do together as Americans. I do believe there's something to say about people who are now able to work. The people who can buy their insulin without paying over $1,000, $35. There's so much good that she can talk about from the visits that she's made to small towns across this country, large cities across the country. Bring us together. The American people want to be led into the future, not dragged back to another era.
And Reince, I want your thoughts on, you've also prepped Donald Trump for debates back in 2016, I believe. What Donald Trump do you think we'll see tonight? Can he be disciplined about talking about policies and what kind of president he will be?
Well, he certainly can be. I mean, the reality is Donald Trump doesn't have a lot to lose tonight. I mean, his support has always been almost unmovable. So the second piece is the honeymoon, I think, is over for Kamala Harris. And you all kind of touched on it with Donna. Kamala Harris has to answer for the state of the economy that she took a role in the Biden administration, the border, you know, her past positions on decriminalizing the border, decriminalizing certain drugs, what her role was in Afghanistan. So really, the spotlight is on Kamala Harris tonight because she played a role in the Biden administration. She wants to act like she's not an incumbent. So this is where the focus is going to be. And she's got a lot to answer for tonight. And I think that's where Donald Trump's focus will be and where it actually should be tonight.
Well, one of the things he wants
All
to
right,
do
everybody.
is have female
Welcome.
voters look at him.
2 minutes until
How
the debate
does he
goes.
attract female
Make a
voters
drink.
after saying things
Get this
about
thing
Kamala Harris?
going.
And we'll see
It's gonna
how he
be,
pronounces that tonight.
gonna be an interesting
things
one
he
for
said
sure.
about Kamala Harris, that she's dumb as a rock.
5 stars.
That's not really going to attract.
Done on the economy. How does she feel about the border?
Thank you for that. I don't know why mine
thanks so much
paused.
for joining us tonight, Donna and Reince. We're all
Yeah, if
staying
there's
tuned.
any
Can't
audio
wait.
issues, guys,
And
let
I
me
have
know
to say,
now
as we
so that
are
it's
just a couple,
resolved
less
early
than
rather
2
than the
minutes
midway
away,
through the
this
stream.
such an
The best way to do
extraordinary
is through
moment,
Discord
especially,
because
Rachel,
sometimes your messages
when you
don't go
consider
through.
that these two people that have been the center of our lives for the last 2 months have never met each other.
Have never even met each other. And Harris said, if you got something to say it to my face. The question tonight, does Donald Trump actually go there? He's questioned her racial identity. He's questioned her
there's no
intelligence
way,
as well.
like-
Or does he stick to the issues?
One thing I've noticed
this
in
is the
the
largest audience they're likely
prelims
going to have
is
in this race. It'd be
everyone,
interesting to see
I guess
if Harris can
ABC
make
is like
clear the
really,
stark choice
guys, I don't
before
watch
voters, but
mainstream
where does she
news at
decide to
all.
land her punches? She can punch hard. Can she
Are
do
we
that?
having a drink?
Rising above the needle and coming
Hold
away.
on one
But first and
second.
foremost,
Let me
I want
finish
to see
this
a
thought.
handshake when the two of
One
them
thing
meet
I've
for the first
noticed
time.
is they're
We
just
didn't back in
completely taking
2016
her
when I
side,
did that
which look,
debate. We'll
no
stand
matter
by
who
to
you
see that
want
tonight,
as the
but
presidential
first
candidate,
time,
it needs to be a neutral
side to
ground.
side.
So I'm drinking
And
tequila.
I have my doubts that we're
The
going to see
brand's
that handshake,
called
but what we are gonna
Addictivo,
see is a spirited debate
Añejo,
and perhaps
aged
the
in
most
old
consequential
bourbon
general
barrels.
election debate we have ever
The
seen,
small
because
bottles go for about
almost
$100 bucks.
certainly
The
gonna
big
be the
bottles go
last
for
one.
about 2 to
So
220.
with the stakes so high, the presidential debate just moments
But if you guys have
away,
any audio
we have the
problems, you can't
entire
hear it
news
enough, I'm going to
division
turn it
keeping
up
an
when
eye
they
on
actually
everything.
start. I
We're
just
gonna
have
be
it low for now.
fact-checking on our live blog.
Just let me know.
It's all going to be happening right here. The debate now just 10 seconds away.
There we go.
And we will be back with our post-game show as soon as it's over. We are going to toss it right now to David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Tonight, the high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala
All right, you
Harris
guys want to know something kind of screwed up? So I made a bunch of cookies before, and I got distracted, and I literally burned every single one of them. I'm so pissed. Every single cookie, dude. I made 12 cookies. Burned every single one of them.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including
Okay,
right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
Did it.
This is an ABC News special. Sequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris.
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump.
We will soon be a great nation again.
Face to face. Historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here
This is
now,
about to be the most
David Muir
wildest debate
and Lindsay
to date,
Davis.
dude. I feel like the first 10 minutes are going to go
Good evening,
really
I'm
well.
David Muir, and thank
then
you for
the
joining
next
us for tonight's
hour, I think
ABC
it's
News
an hour and a
presidential
half.
debate. We want to welcome
I
viewers
don't know,
watching
man.
on
I just feel like
ABC
Kamala's
and
gonna
around the
fall
world
apart.
tonight.
She
Vice
does
President
all the
Kamala
time in
Harris
public.
and President
Best
Donald
of
Trump
luck
are
to
just
her.
moments away from taking
see
the
if
stage
she's
in this
legitimate or not.
unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Got to be like a picture angle thing. You guys know those people are like, oh, I have to be on the right side of the picture. Wait,
Kamala Harris.
Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
Dude, he did not want to shake
Welcome
her
to you
hand.
both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children.
She meant crib, as in
My
like a house.
passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
Because of COVID.
Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died. Has there been anything like it?
Well,
we did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having, on the short end of the stick, in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. "Thank you, President Xi," exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21, that's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, "I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks." But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life.
World issue ever.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body, does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral.
$1,000
one does not have to abandon
they don't have
their
$1,000
faith
emergency fund
or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government and Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible.
I'm just going to turn it down for 1 second because, like, I know abortion's a touchy subject for a lot of people. And someone just asked me to give a comment, so here it is, and we're talking about abortion. I think that this is the dumbest issue that we could be discussing right now, when there are people that literally can't pay their bills. We have rent increasing ridiculous. Like, I literally just got thank God I'm buying a house, because I just got a rent increase. My rent just went up 33%. What is it? Over 50% of Americans, I made this comment earlier, 50% of Americans can't pay a $1,000 emergency fund. So, like, imagine you're a server at a restaurant, right? And you break your leg or something happens to you and you can't work. Or, like, you do something over the weekend or you get sick and you can't work for 2 weeks. Like, so many people are so screwed financially. And here we are talking about abortion that affects what is it, like less than 5% of people? Probably even less than that. I don't know, man. I'm not for or against abortion, but there are so many more important issues
that
than
had
this.
to pay off
There
their
you go.
student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me. But I really didn't.
I don't know, man. I think
we don't
this
have to
issue is
discuss
so
it because
stupid to
she'd
talk
never
about
be
when
able
there
to
are
get it.
so
Just like
many
she
other
couldn't get
things we
student
could be
loans. They
talking
couldn't
about.
get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you
This is gonna be a
rightly
15-minute
mentioned, nowhere in America
debate over something that
is a
doesn't
woman
matter
carrying
that
a
much.
pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion.
Wait,
That
is it
is not
actually?
happening.
Hold
It's
up.
insulting to
Rip
the
this
women
phone
of
here.
America. And understand what has been happening under Donald
Oh,
Trump's
get the hell
abortion
outta here.
bans.
No, it's not.
Couples who pray
It's barely moving.
and dream of having a family
You got me. You
are
got
being
me on that
denied
one.
IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts,
I'm muting the
I saw
abortion
the people of Alabama and the
I'll let it
legislature
run.
2 days later
I have
voted it
to.
in.
Those
I've been a
people are
leader
interested
on
in
it.
this.
They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization,
I just
IVF.
personally think this
and
is
the
the
other
dumbest thing that we should
they
be talking about when there are so many other
you should
issues that
ask.
are far more important.
Will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask
Why-
her that
why
question?
don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's
All right,
important to
this is
Republicans,
important. This is
Democrats,
very
voters across the board
important.
in this country.
Thank
Vice
the
President
Lord
Harris, you were
that we're
tasked by
done with
President
abortion,
Biden with getting to
because-
the root causes of migration
Please.
from Central America. We know that illegal border
Over
crossings
that.
reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June,
Oh, this
President
is gonna
Biden
be
imposed
great.
tough
She's
new
gonna
asylum
divert
restrictions. We
everything.
know the numbers since
we
then
go.
have dropped
She's never even been to
significantly.
the border.
But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know
But
there are
real
so many
quick on
families
that,
watching
there are
tonight
multiple
who've been
states where
personally
they are,
affected
like
by the surge of
Texas
fentanyl in
is
our country.
asking for officers to
bill
come in to help
would have
defend the
put more
state. So what she's
resources
saying
to
is
allow us
complete
to
dog
prosecute
shit.
transnational
I'm
criminal
not gonna say that out
organizations
loud
for
because I have
trafficking in
friends
guns,
law
drugs, and human
enforcement
beings.
that
But you
they're
know what
being
happened
asked to go to
that
Texas
bill?
and being paid.
Donald Trump got on the phone
Not just
called
Texas,
up
all
some
the
folks
border
in
states.
Congress and said,
Even
kill the
Florida.
bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader
What up,
who
Kale?
engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
Bruh, that's
And I will tell you, the one
literally
thing you will
like,
not hear
what?
him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you
What the
deserve
fuck did
a
I just
president who
hear?
actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands
There's
of
videos
additional
of
agents
people
and
walking
officers
out
on the
of her
board.
rallies
First, let me
after
respond
she
as to
has
the
these
rallies.
positions
She
performed.
said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing
I
them
need
in a
more
different
tequila.
light.
This is some
So she
bullshit.
can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of
so Trump
politics.
was
That's
tougher
because
on
people want to
illegal
take
immigrants.
their country back.
he also
Our
wanted to
country
build
is
a
being
border
lost.
wall,
We're a failing nation. And it
between
happened
Mexico and the
3.5
United States.
years ago. And what's going on
Talk
here,
about
you're going to
why
end up
I
in
pay
World War
$5.49
III, just to go
for
into
gas.
another subject. What they have
Are you
done to
paying
our
diesel or are
country
you
by
paying,
allowing
like,
these
normal
millions
gas?
and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating.
There are videos of this,
They're
by the way. It's
eating
pretty
the
wild.
pets
There's a town
of the
that's
people that
not
live
too far
there.
from me. There are a bunch
and
of
this is what's
Venezuelan immigrants
happening
eating
in our
cats.
country,
It's
and it's a
pretty wild.
shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance
gonna
of
say, it's like
success.
285,
not only
Ryan. It's
success,
not too
will end
bad.
up being
Definitely not
Venezuela
where
on steroids.
It was a couple years ago.
I just want to
but
clarify here. You bring up
also it's only
Springfield,
dropping because
Ohio,
the election
and
is
ABC News did reach out to the city
in 2
manager there.
months.
He told us there had been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this,
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on
this is
television
a
say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city
there are
manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this
God,
is,
I
I think,
hate-
one of the
I
reasons
hate
why
backward-ass
in this
comments like
election
that.
I actually have the endorsement
Do
of
67 there. Wait
200
until after the election
Republicans
when it goes back
who
to
have
over
formerly
$3.
worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including
Yeah,
the endorsement
So
of
just real quick,
former
we're
Vice
talking about
President
gas in the
Dick Cheney
chat.
and Congressmember
Gas is
Liz
dropping right
Cheney.
now because
And if you want
of the
really
election
know
coming up. Because
the
they're going to say,
inside
"Oh,
track
gas
on
is this
who
and that,"
the
when
former president
it
is, if
somehow
you didn't
makes
make it
people
clear
forget that
already,
gas is almost
just ask people
$4
who
and
have worked with
$5 in
him.
the middle of their
His
presidency.
former chief
So
of staff, a 4-star general,
drop it before
has said
they
he has
magically
contempt for the
drop it before the
Constitution of the United
election
States.
to get votes.
His former national
Both sides
security
do it.
advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
You guys are cracking
because
me up,
when I
man.
hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or
I'm
a bad
with you,
job.
Digital Red
I
Pill,
fired
I'm
them.
with you.
They never fired one person.
I
they
just got
didn't
a
fire
letter in the mail
anybody
that
having
my
to do
rent
with
just got
Afghanistan
increased
and
by
the
about
Taliban and the
35%,
13 people
so
who's
Not
were
excited
just
about it,
killed,
especially
viciously
when
and
last year I
violently
got the
killed, and I
notice
got to
that,
know the parents and the
utilities went up,
family. They didn't fire. They should have
75%,
fired
so
all
that's
those
awesome.
generals,
I'm
all
with
those
you, man.
top
We need
people,
to talk
because that
about
was
the
one of the
important
most
things about
incompetently
financials.
handled situations anybody
involve financials.
has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can write books, with nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they
Good
never
times and
fire
happy
anybody.
walls.
Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah. It is much higher because
stop
of them.
saying that.
They allowed
You're making me
criminals,
wanna
many,
check.
many millions of criminals.
Oh,
they
shit,
allowed
Bitcoin is
terrorists. They
tanking.
allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to
everyone's
come in,
watching the
drug
debate.
dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted
Oh, here we
for
go.
national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear,
Here we
where
go.
each person stands on the issue of what is important
man.
about respect for
There's
the
a video
rule of
of
law
her, Diddy,
and
and a
respect for
porn
law
star walking
enforcement.
back to
The
a
former
hotel
vice
together, by
president
the way.
called for
You guys should take a look
defunding
at it.
federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York.
Dude, also just going to take another intermission. What the hell are we talking about right now? There's so many other things that we need to debate, and they're just turning this all on like a everyone versus Trump. Excuse me. They're turning this into the media and Harris against Trump right now. I don't know, man, whether you like the guy or not. This is a debate on policy and the ability to be president, right? Why is this turning into me versus you? This is wild.
Thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings.
Even if it was
now
everyone
you're taking
against
a harder
Kamala,
line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
Sorry,
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work, to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams.
Biased. Like I said, it seems like it's one
have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader
what's funny is she should say,
the
stop
leader
name
who
calling,
actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years.
You guys anymore? You going to Mars?
Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly,
Come on,
and
brother.
everybody's laughing
Let's
at
be
it,
real,
okay?
guys.
They're all
As
laughing at it.
emotional as this
She
election
gave
is,
up at
whoever's
least 12
elected,
and probably
probably
14 or
not a
15
lot is
different
going to
policies. Like,
change.
she was big on
We're all still
defund the
gonna be
police.
okay
In
fighting for
Minnesota,
our
she went
lives
out.
on
Wait a
the
minute,
same
I'm
rock.
talking now. If you don't mind,
Hopefully we can
please.
figure it out together.
Does that sound
as
familiar?
A race.
She went out.
Or as a species, I guess.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this.
Shotgun
She wants
will
to
tell you where you're at.
confiscate
Come
your
on,
guns,
man.
and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election,
Real quick, guys, no matter who gets elected, not a lot's going to change. Whether it's, I really doubt a lot is going to change under Harris. She says a lot just to get the base excited. It's really hard to get a lot passed because we have 3 branches of government and there's a lot of discrepancy in between. So don't do anything stupid. Whoever gets elected, keep carrying on and.
Four times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago.
Don't make a
they got it
rash
up
decision
to where
on
I was because
who
they had no
becomes
choice
president.
because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment
to.
that
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all
these comments are
over
cracking me up.
the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle?
Valkyrie?
They went into Seattle. They took
Pretty
over
sure
a
it's
big
Valkyrie,
percentage
but
of the city of Seattle. When are
for
those
some
people
reason
going to be
CW.
prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You
you.
might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol
What's
on
up,
January
Luke?
6th.
Happy to see you here.
I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border. Because they have the right.
All right, so I'm going to interrupt real quick because we keep just doing circles here. One thing I will say so far in this debate, because we haven't gotten an intermission yet, I don't know how you guys feel, and you can leave your opinions, comments, wherever. I'll read them, no problem. I feel like this is very one-sided. It started on important topics, and now it's leaning into kind of like a media plus a candidate versus another candidate. We're getting into emotional politics rather than things that actually matter. Again, I'm going to bring this up. I said this earlier, but 50% plus of Americans cannot afford a $1,000 emergency fund, right? Yet we're talking about abortion, which does not affect a whole lot of people. We're talking about January 6th, which we've talked about everywhere. I don't know, man.
It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker.
I hope that this turns around because this is kind of
There's so much proof. All you have
like,
to do is look at it.
especially as someone that's going to vote. I want to see what both of them have to say about finding solutions to the major problems in this country. Not, oh, he's a liar and everything he does sucks, or he's like, oh, she's a whatever. I don't know, man. We keep doing the circle thing on immigration. It's time to move on. I don't want to hear any of this bias. Like it seems like they're attacking Trump, and I don't like that. Put another issue up. Put an important issue up. Again, the one that I just brought up. right? 50% of Americans can't afford an emergency fund. How can we fix this? How can we fix inflation? I know we talked about
I didn't
inflation
detect the
a little bit
sarcasm,
earlier,
lost
but
by
it
a whisker.
seems
We
like
didn't quite make it.
a quick,
And we should just point out
minute.
here as
We've
clarification,
been
and
on
you
the
know this,
same issue
you
for
and
the
your
last
allies, 60
15
cases
minutes.
in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
I'm
And
going
so
to
they
hear
knew.
we've got 1,400 people.
That's the other thing.
A lot on
they
Twitter.
said we didn't have standing, a technicality.
I
Can
will.
you imagine?
Sorry, I'm going to drop it real quick. Thanks to everyone that's here. I hope you're enjoying it. Sorry if I'm rambling on. I've been messaged multiple times to continue giving comments, so I'm trying to do my best, but I'm trying to let you guys also listen. Make a drink because we still have a lot more time to go.
Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump.
Yeah,
I have talked with military leaders, some of whom work with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world.
But I'll be right back.
Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters.
My apologies.
Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that.
So what she just said was Israel has the right to defend itself, but we need a ceasefire.
For a two-state solution. And in that
What?
solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
I will be honest, I'm not as educated on this
President
topic,
Trump,
so
how would you
really
negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel. Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing
She just
every
said we don't need a
nation
weak
last
president.
month
She
for
just
the year,
served with
168
Biden.
different countries.
That guy was a
sending
walking
people into our
corpse for the
country.
last
Their crime rates are way
3.5
down.
years.
Putin endorsed her
Crazy.
last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential
All right,
debate from
we
the National
finally
Constitution
get
Center.
an intermission. So, I actually have. I was supposed to do this live stream with my brother and a buddy of mine. They're sitting, so I'm gonna join them and kind of discuss with them a little bit. And they're not there, so it doesn't matter. So, okay. What are my thoughts so far? I won't lie, I think that this is the most biased debate I've ever seen in my life. Obviously, the media is very biased here in the United States. But for the first, there was a good 30-minute stretch where it seemed like we were just trying to attack one candidate and appease another. Like, ego stroke another. And I don't like that. Guys, this is a debate, and this is probably one of the last debates. Like, we'll be lucky if we get another one. Right? This is a chance for both these candidates to prove what their policies are, how they're going to solve these issues. And one, I don't like the questions. The first 2 to 3 questions were good, right? Immigration, inflation, economy. Now we're talking about abortion. We keep circling back. We're talking about January 6th. Look, January 6th is important, but there's video evidence that it really wasn't as big of a deal as everyone's led to believe. And I'll say that with my dying breath. I first thought that it was disgraceful, and then I saw the video evidence. I don't know, man. So I hope that this next half of the debate becomes more of a, hey, here are more issues in the United States that matter, not a bunch of he said, she said, you might have done this, she might have done that. I want to know how we're going to solve problems. Like, I could give 2 fucks about what someone said 10 years ago or 20 years ago or even 2 years ago. What I want to know is, how are you going to reduce my rent, reduce my gas, right? So that I can go to the grocery store and not spend $400 on my girlfriend and I. I think we're all in the same boat here. Like, in my demographic, like the guys that are my age, there's a lot of us that can't even have a family anymore. Like, we can't even have kids because we can't afford it. Because it's too expensive. Because food is too expensive. Because healthcare is too expensive. Because housing is too expensive. So, how are we going to fix those problems? Again, I don't care about abortion. I don't care about half the things they've talked about tonight. I need more from that. Personally, who do I think is winning? I think that no one is winning so far. I think that Kamala is taking me a little off guard. I thought she'd be a complete dumbass tonight. However, she's not. She's definitely playing the emotional, fearful, like, Trump is going to ruin the country. Trump is going to do this and that and dictator, and, you know, that works for her, right? That's a good strategy. And whether or not you agree with it, it's a strategy. It's good. She's sticking to it. I think she's doing, you know, a good job in that suspect. I won't lie, though. I think Trump has answered the questions much better. I support what he's said, personally. I don't know. I feel like Harris is kind of avoiding some of the questions and kind of circling back on the you're disgraceful. And she keeps saying, like, we need to stop name calling. And then she calls Trump a disgrace. So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy on her end. And I hate hypocrites. I hate them. I don't care what you believe in as long as you stick to it. And I'm not seeing that from her personally. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. But let me know. You're glad you're Canadian for real. America's so fucked. You know what's funny? The only thing we hear in America is how Canada's so fucked. So it's always funny to see that, like, that other perspective. Think you're gonna go red this year? What's up, CFC? How you going? How you doing? Yeah, the debate is unnecessarily made into something tense instead of normally talking about stuff. Look, I don't care about. I'm with you, right? I don't care about all this nonsense. What I want to see is how are we addressing the major issues in this country that everyone knows about, right? Like, there's no secret what the problems are here. And, you know, I know there's a lot of people and you're for abortion or you're against abortion. Abortion is not a topic we should be talking about. I don't care if you're for or against, whatever you are. I don't care. There's so many bigger issues going on than abortion.
Here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5
Especially
years
when rent
into this
for
conflict.
like 80%
Mr. President,
of
it has been
Americans
the
went up
position of the Biden
50%
administration
in the
that
last
we must
year and a half.
defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty,
Crazy.
their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing
I
that if
missed the
Putin
first 15
wins,
minutes.
he
Actually,
may be
the first
emboldened to move
15
even
minutes were
further
pretty
into
solid.
other countries.
They
You have
actually
said you would
covered
solve
things
this
that
war in
mattered.
24
And
hours.
now
You said
from
so just
the
before
first
the break
15
tonight.
minutes until
How exactly would
about
you
the
do
last
that?
10
And I want to
minutes,
ask you a very
it
simple
was
question
just
tonight. Do you want Ukraine
bullshit.
to win this
Like,
war?
don't even bother
I want
rewatching.
the war
It's
to stop.
just
I
complete
want to
ego
save
stroking,
lives
complete
that are
bullshit.
being uselessly,
Let's get
people
back
being
into it.
killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to
Canadian elections are gonna
150.
be the same.
They
That's
should be
crazy.
forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
They threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also, as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense.
I just don't know what to
because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks
one
that
thing
we
I do
have
know is there's
provided,
a shit
Ukraine
ton
stands
of
as
money
an
laundering
independent and
happening
free country. If
between
Donald
the
Trump were
US and
president,
Ukraine.
Putin would be
That's
sitting
something
in
I don't
Kyiv right
support
now.
at all.
And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
It's crazy how much.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you
Money
on
laundering
Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour.
Absolutely absurd.
I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got...
You know, it's one thing I'm noticing is that she's trying to poke the bear constantly. She's trying to get Trump to freak out so they can post a video of it on all her TikToks and shit. And he's doing a great job by not reacting.
He hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader, upholding international...
So real quick, I'm actually joined by 2 of my brothers. We're also going to give a little bit of commentary. Trying to get the audio to work. I'll turn this back up.
Favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief, and the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I
this is
agreed with
interesting.
President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the
Taliban's
wrong
also
people
a
all
huge
the time.
political group.
But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And my house, I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal. And in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Oh, dude, this is crazy.
I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something, I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
Okay, so
but those were your words. So I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was
what the hell
not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me.
Guys.
That's
Sorry
up to
about
her.
this.
That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide
Just
the
lost
American
all
people.
my sources, and I do not know.
You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us
working on
know that we
fixing
have so
that.
much
My
more in common than what
apologies.
separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings.
There we go.
And
Hopefully that's
he
fixed.
was
Sorry about
investigated
that. We had a small
because
technical difficulty.
He refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other.
Yeah, they really did try.
I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things
They keep
like
circling back on immigration.
what she
like
just
they
said.
need to
going back
get on
many,
with
many
it.
years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me
Mitch,
on
real
the
quick,
Central
do you
Park
know how
5,
to
they
add,
admitted, they said, they pled
Discord
guilty.
to the audio?
And I
I'm
said,
trying to
well, if they
figure it out.
pled
I
guilty,
cannot.
they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately.
Used to know.
And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy.
No,
they
I
have
can
no
hear
idea
you.
what a good
My
economy
stream's
is.
not picking it up.
Their oil policies, every single policy. And
Yeah,
remember
it's
this,
ABC organizing
she
it,
is
but we're
Biden.
still talking.
You know, she's trying to get away from
started
Biden. I
again,
don't know the
part
gentleman.
2,
She says
great.
she is
But now we're
Biden.
leaning into
the
his.
worst inflation we've
Once
ever
again.
had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up, Lindsay.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay. Thank
That's
you, Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsey,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
Last
something
debate was
twice,
much
so I
better.
need to respond.
I'm not
I'm
sure we
sorry,
can
we're
say
gonna-
that
we're
because
gonna
Biden was
respond,
half
Vice
asleep
President
through.
what he has
President
said.
Trump,
30
this
minutes,
is
yeah.
now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working
need
on it.
more
So
Vicar.
tonight,
This
9
is
years after
crazy.
you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it.
I have no idea why.
I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have a real
Side note, because we're talking about
differences they don't get rid
Obamacare.
of. But let me just
First of all,
explain.
Obamacare was a
I
financial
had a choice
disaster.
to make.
Second,
Do I save it
here's a
and
great
make it
idea
as
for any
good
of you
as it can
guys that
be, or
drink.
do I let it rot?
Get a Yeti cup,
And I
put
saved
ice
it.
in
I
it,
did the
right?
thing.
So I got my ice
But
cup,
it's still
got my
never
highball
going to be
glass,
great, and it's too
and then you have your
expensive for people.
decanter of tequila,
what
whiskey,
we
whatever
will
you put
do
in it.
is we're looking at different
And you
plans.
always have
If we
ice.
can
You
come
could have
up
an
with
ice
a plan
bucket
that's
too.
gonna
Unfortunately,
cost
I'm not that
our
fancy.
people, our population,
Roman's
less money
tips
and
of
be
the
better
day.
healthcare
You're
than
welcome.
Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
Wait, but
As
she
it relates to the
literally
Affordable Care
said
Act,
she was
understand,
going
let's just
to take
look at the
away
history to
people's
know where
guns.
people stand.
There
When
are
Donald Trump was
videos
president,
on her saying
60
that.
times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget
Guys,
the
the
early
Affordable
morning
Hair
hours
Affordable
when
Care Act
it was up
was
for
a
a vote in the
financial
United States Senate.
disaster.
And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. If a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes, and thankfully, as I've been vice president and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription
Why was
medication
it a
for seniors at
disaster?
$2,000
Okay, so-
a year. And when I am president,
My background is purely finance. So I actually had a professor, like we studied the Affordable Care Act. Why was it a financial disaster? Well, there's 100 different reasons why. The biggest one is because we have multiple testing in the United States. It is so expensive. Like half the reason why medical is so expensive here, and you know, part of the reason why it's so good is because you'll go. Let's say I break my arm. Here's the example: break my arm. I go to the hospital. Right? They give me an X-ray. They say, "Sir, your arm's broken." They put me in a cast. They charge $5 grand. Right? Maybe insurance covers it. Maybe whatever covers it. Anyways, then they say, "Hey, we can't do the surgery here. We're gonna refer you to a sports orthopedic doctor." Okay, so they refer you. You go there. All right. Then you get there. They take another X-ray. Right? They take another X-ray. Okay. Then you go and they're like, "Hey, your arm's broken, so we're gonna have to do this." This procedure, come in 2 weeks from now, do the procedure. You go again, you do another X-ray. That's 3 X-rays for 1 broken arm, right? Multiple testing is going on here, multiple reoccurrence. Now, in some ways you need that, but this is why it's so expensive. Then you have your operation, then you come back, you have 2 more X-rays, that's 5 X-rays in total. Now, to a lot of you, you think the procedure is the most expensive part. You just had 5 X-rays done, right? 5 X-rays. You could have had 2. You could have had the before and after, just to make sure everything's healing. Now, I could go into the other 50 reasons why it's a problem. The other problem is when you bring the government involved into anything, which we have seen in countless other, I'm just going to say issues or groups or organizations, it is slow, it is costly as shit, it is inefficient, and generally speaking, it just falls to shit. Look at your transportation systems. You're going to tell me you want the government running your medical? That's the reason why people from other countries come here to get their medical done. Right. I don't know. Amongst if you have private insurance, now you have to pay a $500 fine, I guess it's not necessarily called a fine. It's called a penalty for not using Obamacare. It was a financial disaster.
In
it's
American-made products, American automobiles, it includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving.
Let's see the
They're building big auto plants in Mexico,
I'll pull it
in
up,
many cases owned by China.
Pull it up
they're
on the next
building
intermission.
these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did he get? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
We technically can't use this, but we'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Which we don't have the money for. And I was like, fire. I've just been inhaling fucking.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
All right, so my thoughts moving on from where we last were.
Baywatch is a fantasy.
I'm just going to be honest. You know, I've had a couple drinks, so I'm going to be honest with you guys. So what I do, for those of you that came and watched, I do want to say thank you. There's 2,000 of y'all. This is awesome. If there's another debate, I'll do it again. But, you know, I live in the financial realm. I live in the let's figure out the economy, increase stock market. That's what makes me happy. Not to mention, you know, educated. I know what's going on in this country. I know it's good, bad, ugly. There's a lot of ugly stuff happening, and I feel like we really haven't covered a lot of it. I feel like the majority of the debate has been ego stroking. I feel like the majority of the debate has been, let's be biased and attack somebody. Look, at the end of the day, this is a presidential debate. Here's the issue. How would you solve it? How would you solve it? Not, hey, you said this 10 years ago, or you did this, or you did that. How would you do this? It just seems like we're just on, ABC and Kamala are on the attack on Trump. Now, I'll give Kamala credit. She looks a lot better than I thought she would. I thought she'd show up and be an absolute jackass. But she's playing the emotional card. She's playing the fear, the doubt. She's going to make people that are uneducated in a lot of these issues say, wait, what? And, you know, they're not going to spend the time to look up what actually happened. She keeps calling him a liar. I don't know, man. It just seems to me it's a toxic, hypocritical strategy. She keeps saying she doesn't want to call people names, and then she goes and does it. I mean, perfect little example. You know, I expected a lot more from this debate, I won't lie. I'm kind of displeased. I'm really not happy with the way it was ran, the way ABC handled it. I'm just going to completely mute the audio real quick. I don't like how ABC's handling it. I don't like the bias. Guys, at the end of the day, the job of the journalist or the media is to give an unbiased opinion so that everyone else can make their own. And what I'm seeing now is just disgrace. And in some ways, I don't want to say like treasonous, but it's just un-American. Like, it's our job to determine who we support, who we like, what policies we like. And I don't like how it's been attack on Trump, and he's just been constantly defending himself. Now, I'll give him credit. He hasn't imploded. He hasn't, you know, said something egregious or done anything. Kamala's been poking him all night. I don't know. I'm really displeased the way that this debate has gone. I feel like a lot of questions I needed answered were not answered tonight. And to be fair, this is probably the last debate they'll have until Election Day. This was an emotional discharge by Kamala. You know, she's got the media on her back. I just don't like it overall. I don't know how you guys feel. I'd love to hear your opinions, comments. Feel free. YouTube, Twitter. You can DM me on Twitter. I just don't like how this is probably the one chance we're going to get to really hear the candidate, their policies. And I feel like we've been running for an hour and 50 minutes, and I feel like only 10 minutes of it has been legitimate debate on issues that matter. And now I know I'm stretching. It's probably been 20 minutes, but it's really, it sucks to be an American right now. That's how I feel. I feel like all the things that matter to me and, you know, are important that a lot of people face day to day, we're not talking about. We're not talking about, you know, I know we talked about inflation for a little while. We're not talking about how to keep people in their jobs, how to keep people into one job rather than multiple jobs because the economy's so bad, because groceries are so high. We're not talking about how to solve, you know, reducing energy. We're not talking about, dude, I could go on and on and on, but here we go.
I'm Rachel Scott. Wherever the
Almost
story
back.
is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Wonder where Kamala plans to get all the money from for financial
Live
aid
from
for
the
business
National
owners and home
Constitution
buyers.
Center
Probably
in
everything.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
And by the way, what's up, Scoot?
Here again,
nice to see you here.
David Muir and
3
Lindsay
versus 1, no
Davis.
fact check on her lies.
Welcome back
and
tonight. The
intentional
time has
bad
come for
camera
closing
angle to make
statements,
Trump
and
look
Vice
down.
President Harris.
I noticed that. That's why she picked the right angle.
So
I
think
called that
you've
out at the
heard
beginning of the
tonight
live
two
stream.
very
You're
different
too smart to
visions for
listen
our
to this shit,
country.
but the majority of people are too stupid.
One that
and
is
just want
focused
drama.
on the
Yeah,
future.
you're probably right.
And the other that is focused on the past.
Let's hear this.
And an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one
Backwards
client,
sounds good.
the people.
Jeez.
And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now.
The
Someone who
emotional
cares about
discharge
you and
strikes
is not putting
again.
themselves first.
I don't know about you
intend to be a
guys,
president
but
for all
when I
Americans
look at someone and I talk to them,
focus on what we can do
you
over the
look at
next
them in
10
the
and
eyes,
20
right? You can
years
tell.
to build back
I
up our
believe
country
you,
by investing
or I don't
right
believe
now
you. Look, I hate
in you, the
politicians
American
to
people.
my dying breath.
Vice
I don't believe a
President
single
Harris,
word she
thank
says.
you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had
This
3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now.
To be
go
fair,
down
the high
to that
cost of living
beautiful
is
White
coming
House,
from the
go to
last
the
three
Capitol,
presidents
get everyone
combined.
together and do
And a
the
big
things
part of
you
it's
want to do, but
COVID,
you
which
haven't
is
done
really
it,
out of
and you won't
everybody's
do it
control.
because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within
But
1
I
year
will say they
were
haven't
back
helped
to
the high
building
cost of living.
normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
That was like... That was like... That was easily... I want to say like the worst 2 hours of my life. But I think I lost more brain cells then than drinking a whole bottle of Jack and then smacking my head on the concrete. Not that I've done that before, but I can imagine would have lost more brain cells with that. With how unproductive that debate was. I am... you guys want to know how I feel? I feel like the media... I feel like all the problems that all of us face day to day, no one gives a shit about because they barely talked about them. It was emotionally charged. It was an ego stroke. It was biased. You know, everyone's a liar. I mean, I don't know, but
not only did she initiate it,
oh, here we go.
Walked over to him and sought him out, put the hands out, and also.
Oh, here we go. I could care less, you piece of shit. Real quick, I've got a couple of you guys don't have to stay around. I do want to say thank you guys for being here. There's 2,000 of you. I said I was going to do the debate. I did the last debate. It was a success. This one seemed to be about the same. So thank you for being here. For those of you that are new or didn't know, I live stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I do mostly stocks and crypto-based market analysis. But instead of listening to ABC News stroke Kamala's ego some more, I actually have two of my brothers and then a friend, and actually two of them, we actually have a kind of two-way split, two guys in the middle. We have a conservative and we have a liberal. So I just want to talk to them, see their thoughts, kind of see what's going on. We'll answer any of your guys' questions. Again, you don't have to sit here, but I figured it'd be kind of fun. Keep the kind of show on the road, and let me see if I can get this audio to work. But just for the sake of looking at something, we'll leave this up, even though this woman looks like a snake. All right, looks like my audio is working, so everybody can hear you guys. All right, so thoughts. What do we think? Try not to all talk at once.
Kind of stupid. I mean, like, Kamala Harris literally didn't argue anything about abortion. All she did was just tell stories about it, which, like, it's good to do that and all that, but, like, you can't really, it doesn't persuade anyone. Like, their whole points of persuading was just, like, trying to throw sad stories. And then when they're asked about climate change, it's just fucking it's just like manufacturing jobs, and like you didn't even know, like nobody knows anything about the EPA right now. No one does. No one knows anything about any government agency right now. That's why people are pissed. All right, Mitch, you can.
Yeah, Mitch.
Yeah.
Mitch,
I just
let's hear
heard.
it.
I just heard a lot of "you're a liar." No, you're a liar. You're a liar. No, you're a liar. You're a bad person. No, you're a bad person. And that seems to be like 75% of it.
I'm with you. That's kind of what I was debating the whole night was, why aren't we talking about relevant issues? Why aren't we talking about issues people face day to day? I know that all 3 or 4 of us either rent, maybe even own a house, and it just, dude, cost of living is probably the most important issue, and it was given a whole 7.5-minute window, and then they just did this whole like attack on Trump, and then it was emotionally charged, and then it was about January 6th and abortion. And I don't know, I felt like the whole time that we weren't addressing issues that actually mattered. We were just emotionally charging the base of one party, in my opinion. I'm more than happy to be wrong on that, but that's how I felt. I felt like as an American, like nothing that I care, like obviously I care about different things, but I feel like the things that affect me day to day affect 80 to 90% of Americans. And look, they're only showing, I mean, this is crazy,
now,
ABC.
Many Americans know is you saw a president for all America in Kamala Harris.
Crazy, man. I can't believe they're only showing. I mean, this goes to show the bias. I know I just interrupted myself, but this goes to show the bias. They're not letting J.D. Vance talk.
Forward. Let's everybody be a part of it.
It's crazy, man. I'm just, for once, I'm tired of bias. I just want the facts. I don't want emotionally charged bullshit. I just want what will make, I hate to say make us great again, but make us live an affordable life again, dude. Like, my rent just went up 35%. Kamala, how are you going to fix that? And she never answered it for me. Oh, Pete, what did you think of the what did you think of Kamala's name calling and then saying, "Oh, we shouldn't call each other names while we're debating"? If he's even still here.
Oh, come on, Pete.
I might have dipped. Mitch, what did you think of the hypocrisy? Really on both sides. You pointed out on both sides.
I mean, dude, like, I'm so pessimistic about it because the whole thing was riddled with it. What it came down to for me was the fact that Trump did something and then got on with it and actually talked about it, but Kamala would just like keep being bogged down on the weeds, dude. Just like blah, 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 blah. not saying anything the entire time she's talking, dude. Like, it was insufferable. I don't even know. I don't know what she stands for at all.
I don't either. And really the fact that like one thing we kept talking all night was immigration, which immigration is important. There's a lot of negative things happening with a lot of immigrants entering, but felt like we kind of covered that topic, could have moved on. But it seemed like we would start on, like, they'd say, hey, debate this topic, and then it would turn into immigration, and then it would turn into name calling and kind of like the rambling, and then the emotional upcharge. Oh wait, they are. Hold on.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
All right, take it back. They're not all.
I want to get to one part in the debate where you came up.
Dude,
Donald Trump was asked if he would veto a national abortion ban. He didn't answer the question, suggested, I guess, that he wouldn't. And then it was pointed out that you, in fact, said not that long ago that he would veto a national abortion ban. Can you explain the mix-up here?
Well, I think the president's been very clear that he doesn't want a national abortion ban. I think in some ways he finds the question a little bit ridiculous because why are we asking him about legislation that's never going to actually happen, and why he would veto it or not veto it when he says very explicitly that he doesn't support a national abortion ban and he wants these policies to be made by the states. But I think there's a deeper and more important issue here in this debate, which is that you had Kamala Harris effectively echoing platitude after platitude after platitude. The American people can't pay their grocery bills on platitudes. They can't put their kids in a house on platitudes. And Kamala Harris had a lot to say, but very little actual substance behind it for how she's going to lower grocery prices, secure the border, and make housing more affordable in this country. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She can't run on a record, and she apparently can't run on much of her plans either because it's just a lot of slogans and not a whole lot of substance.
But Senator Vance, why won't he just say that he would veto the national abortion ban? And by the way, had you spoken to him about it before you were put in a position to answer that question?
No, I hadn't spoken to him about it because, again, Donald Trump thinks the question is absurd because he doesn't support a national abortion ban, and he's been explicit about it. And, John, I think that it's so preposterous for the media to focus so much on an issue where Donald Trump has been crystal clear and not on the fact that people can't afford groceries and housing because of Kamala Harris.
Yeah, they brought up the Palestine-Israel thing, and she completely backtracked.
And Kamala Harris and apparently the media would like to distract Americans.
She was like, I support Israel.
Alone, it makes sense.
Because they can't afford groceries, they can't afford housing.
To a degree, but how can you outright say, I want them to defend themselves, but then I want peace? I don't know. To me, it's like you want one side to. Okay, I will say she didn't say I want this side to win.
Yeah, I mean, you can interpret that as she's saying like I prefer peace, but if they need to defend themselves, they're allowed to.
I don't know. The way that I see it, I think that they want it to happen, but they want they don't want to see, they don't want to look bad. You know, like you can't just because we're technically allies with Israel, so we have to. But like at the same time, like you have a bunch of Palestinians that live in America that are fucking pissed, and like if you and they want their they literally want their heads. So if you just say, oh, we support Israel, then dude, you're about to get probably about to have what Trump had.
American people are smart, and Kamala Harris
probably have.
Oh, JD, I unfortunately disagree with you. The American people are not that smart. We're fat and stupid.
About what she said, you realize that it doesn't make any sense. She talks a lot about her plans, but then her plans, when you analyze the substance, don't make any sense. And more importantly, John, the American people don't get fed on plans. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. What she can't do, refuses to do, and has no ability to do is to say, I accomplished lower prices because she didn't, or I accomplished lower housing prices because she didn't, or I secured the southern border because she didn't do that. She is failed as vice president, and the fundamental question is,
so, little known fact, I have shot guns with JD Vance.
Senator Vance, thank you for joining us, Mary.
So,
yeah, that's how big his wee is.
So, just in case anyone wanted to know,
it was in a helicopter.
I actually have a negative view on JD Vance. Not because I think he won't do a good job, because I think he's too young. Because if something happens to Trump, I think he's too young and inexperienced. And do I like him? Yes, but do I think that he'll do a good job if something happens to Trump if they get elected? Possibly. But it's like, I guess a good example would be like, imagine you have a CEO, he's been in the company for 40 years, he knows everything about the company, he knows everything down to the janitorial position, and then he dies, and then we put in the young, you know, Harvard grad into the CEO position. Could he do a good job? Is he smart enough to do the job? Maybe.
Danny, he's setting him up for a dictatorship. You know
Maybe.
what I'm saying? He's young.
Yeah, they brought up dictator a lot.
Because he can't be the dictator because he's going to die soon. So he's got to find someone to do it for him.
That's right.
Yeah.
Dude, I was really hyped for this debate, and I left very displeased. I was not.
Smart.
Holy shit! There's a scooter that holds 300 pounds. Dude, what is this commercial right now? See, I told you guys Americans are fat and stupid, and there's literally a scooter up there for fat people. No, dude.
That's insane.
That is pretty. That's called targeted advertisement, dude.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. That is diabolical.
That is crazy.
That is diabolical right there.
Yeah, that. Oh, like I said, everyone's geeking out. So, chat. I'm gonna say chat. I've never said that before, but chat. What did you guys think of the debate? Views, opinions. How did you feel during and after? I want it all. Who's in the call? One of my brothers and one of my closest friends.
Oh, he hit you with the closest
Just here, kind of
friend.
giving final thoughts before I end the stream. I mean, we might run for a little while. We've got 2,000 people here, so I'm not in a rush. I don't have a lot to do tomorrow. So, scary thought. What if Kamala wins and she drops out for whatever reason? You get that Waltz guy. So my only problem with Waltz is he watched Minnesota burn to the ground, and I have a really close friend of mine that has been a Democrat his whole life, and grew up inner city and everything, and he saw his city burn to the ground. I don't want to say due to Tim Waltz, but Waltz let it happen. And now he hates him, everything about him. Still Democrat, just hates everything about him.
It doesn't get any more cutting edge than this.
American TV advertisement is pure dystopia, only things for unhealthy and fat. Oh, man. Only for those that are fat and stupid, which is a lot of us, unfortunately. Embarrassing. I almost wonder, you guys from other countries, like, what did you think of that? Are you embarrassed for us? Are you confident in us?
I'm always curious to see what the other people from the other side of the world think.
Yeah, the Tim Waltz family literally supports Trump. Yeah, that's the other thing, Pete. I have so many people from all these other countries, and they give opinions. The shocking thing is a lot of them actually really like Trump, despite what the media says. Not that they like Trump as a person, they like his policies, they like what he did in America.
Remarkable debate. Bottom line, what'd you think?
I think I'm happy I'm from Canada. So are you happy with... Okay, so I guess my next question is, who do you think won, and are you happy with that?
That he should have been talking about. This is the difference between someone who's well prepared and
confident. Oh, one of the guys says, he starts laughing. He says, "You're confident off a Trump-Harris debate."
Not good tonight at all. And what Harris did was.
I'm here for finance. Yeah. DNC and RC control the debates and who the parties nominate. No real chance for a third party to really disrupt the deep state. Yeah.
Talking about people eating pets, people.
Dude, I hate how a lot of people like associate RFK with Trump, even though he was originally going to run as a Democrat and got kicked out.
Is that Kamala Harris is now being seen by a lot of
He did endorse him, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
He endorsed him.
Yeah, and then he got kicked out of the DNC, and he had to run as
So
independent.
I know they're talking about the pets thing. I'm pretty confident I saw videos of immigrants eating cats and dogs. I could be wrong.
Dude, I've seen some messed up stuff. And
That's what I thought too, and it was
that.
removed.
I'm not trying to watch that. I don't even care if it's true. Like, I don't care if that's like on a live leak or something. Like,
big moment.
Oh, go ahead,
She
Pete. Sorry,
met the
finish.
moment. She
Yeah,
seized the
I don't want to even see
opportunity
that.
to tell the American people what she would do.
So someone says I'm not embarrassed for Americans. I'm pissed off that people still believe the bullshit. I'm from Sweden. Yeah, you'd think that. You think that after COVID we would start to get smart. Real quick look at some crypto. I've been asked to look at charts. Here it is.
No, don't show me.
Quick analysis. Not a lot has happened. I'm kind of surprised that there hasn't been a lot of volatility. Even on the 15-minute, not a lot of volatility. I do have bullish divergences on the 15, so I'd expect this to head back higher. Quick little 5-minute view of the market. Kind of shocked that the debate didn't trigger anything, but then again, I bet the market's as confused as we are. So, anyone look at the Poly Market or ABC poll on who won? Bro, ABC has proven to me to be another news source I will never get news from again in my life. Other than if there's a debate being hosted by them.
Dude, who was that girl reporter, dude? She was literally like eyeing Kamala Harris down like they were married. It was really weird.
We have a left shoulder and head on hour 1. All right, hold on. I'll pull it back.
Again, what a
left shoulder head on
incredible
hour 1.
consequential debate, no doubt. I don't know how many votes will actually be moved. I don't know how many persuadable voters are actually out.
Talking about on Bitcoin, I don't see any reversal on Bitcoin. The only thing I see are bullish divergences here. Possible consolidation. So I'd love to see 58K break. Primarily because your boy owns a lot of fetch. And currently we have an inverted head and shoulders.
That she acted like she seemed like she belonged.
Exactly, and Chris was clearly impressed with that.
I'll give Kamala some credit. She didn't look like a total jackass.
What matters is what the voters think. Kamala Harris was hurling things against Donald Trump.
If Camel wins, expect massive drops.
And everything else she could throw at him, but in the end, right now, he is tied.
Were you guys also surprised on how good Kamala looked? Like honestly, because normally she looks like a clown.
Many debates in 2016.
Dude, I think she.
So you have to be very careful, and it's very important to.
I think Kamala just needed to stop like laughing as loud as possible.
Well, she didn't do that at all in the debate. What I'm saying is, the night she showed up, poised and stuck to a plan.
That is true. She did stick to a
whether
plan.
you like her or not, she did a fantastic job sticking to her
Oh
plan.
no, I'm not discrediting her or anything. She did great. Like
She was incredibly calculated.
She definitely did a good job at like like doing what she needed to do, but like I just wasn't happy over the debate, like just the outcome. That was it. I mean, like both of them did their good job of pretty much deflecting, but like but you know, I just wish there were more answers.
I've got someone that said she looked like a total clown. I got someone that said she looked better than before. So don't get me wrong, I think she looked like a total clown in the fact that I'm an intelligent person and I know she's bullshitting and taking an emotional route to distract and to charge up her base. But thinking as an average person, let me take a hammer and smack myself in the head so I can think like a normal person. Or an average American. She's stuck to a plan. She's stuck to emotionally charging. She's stuck to calling him a liar. She's stuck to kind of poking the bear and making him agitated. And instead of showing up and looking like an absolute clown, which she has in the past. Also, this didn't look good for Trump, where she walked over and he didn't. But whatever.
But then the candidates held nothing back. Take a look.
Everything she said was clearly rehearsed in her mirror 100 times. Yeah, I would say that she was lacking the passion in her words, for sure.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, she was emphasizing way more than Trump, but it was
way
just,
more.
It was just
it's because you knew that she rehearsed it 1,000 times.
Yeah, you could tell it was so tactile. It was so tactile. There was no emotion.
It was also. It's also kind of like it was like nerve-wracking. You try like watching her try to be like more like outward going towards people. Like she tried to shake Donald Trump's hand like very aggressively. Like it looked very awkward. And then like she was definitely emphasizing like a lot more than she needed to.
Chat, can we get a montage of all the awkward Kamala phrases from tonight's debate because I think there was probably at least like 16 of them.
Showing the race still neck and neck within the margin of error, including in the battleground states.
Oh man,
the question on many people's minds right now is
Yo, I mean, whoever's gonna free Young Thug is getting my vote. So.
Jeez. All I know is, and I'm heard multiple fund managers say this is, we get a blue wave, not going to be good for markets. We get a red wave, likely good for markets. Now, if we get Kamala elected, but the House and Senate are not a complete blue wave and we get stagnation, that is also good for the market. Believe it or not. Policy change is horrible for the economy because all of these businesses have to adjust unless the policy changes reducing taxes and in the way like trying to increase sales through other programs. Free thugger.
The one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
Nice one, Mitch.
Lashing out.
It's been so bad. It's so ridiculous.
Trump in his 7th presidential debate. Harris, her first.
I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say
oh, they're picking the best.
The candidates clashing on major issues like the economy.
Oh, they're picking her best at moments.
Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
I'm like
I am
pretty
actually
positive
the only
that's
person
not
on
true.
The stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People
Yo,
can't
Pete, will
go
you
out
stream
and
this
buy
thing again?
cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else.
You want me to stream Danny's or do you want me to stream the actual thing?
Whatever's in time, because I'm like 20 seconds behind on YouTube.
To you.
Yeah, I got you.
Congress passes a
I will say I am going to end it here in the next probably 5 to 10. I just want to hear like,
States, I will proudly
oh
sign
man, they're just
into
stroking
law.
Kamala.
But
now.
understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected,
glaze
he will
continue.
sign a
with you.
national abortion ban.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. She said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote.
And immigration.
I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down. All over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof.
Harris mentioning Trump's legal woes, including 4 felony indictments and 1 conviction.
I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing.
Trump doubling down on his lies that he won the 2020 election.
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
that.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically.
Crime is up all over the world,
Donald Trump
especially
was
in Western
fired by
countries.
81 million people.
Well, it's where all the immigration.
So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
Their differences stark, making their pitches in a
Bro,
race
there's
that
so much
poll
gun
after
violence
poll
now, it's
show
crazy.
is neck and neck.
The President of the United States is commander
Danny,
in
the
chief,
other
and
like
the
2 weeks ago, I
American
went to a gas
people have a
station,
right to
and I
rely
literally was like,
on
this
a
guy had a
president
like an
who
actual like whip
understands
on
the
his Glock,
significance of
like
America's
bendo mag,
role
everything,
and
his fucking back
responsibility
pants.
in terms
And
of
I was
ensuring that
like,
there is
I was like, all right,
stability
I mean,
and
this dude's
ensuring we
either about
stand
to rob
up
this
for our
gas station,
principles and not
I'm
sell
about to
them
die,
for
or I'm about to go to
for
work.
the benefit of personal flattery.
I
what
probably
was the
took
outcome?
a bullet to the head.
Oh, he left. He didn't
because
like.
of
He
the
like. He
things
went.
that
It was
they
so
say about
sus.
Nothing
Dude. He like
happened.
went.
about
Ladies and
Well,
gentlemen,
no,
nothing happened.
They're the
But
threat to
like
democracy
he
with a fake
walked
Oh,
in
my
like.
goodness.
Well, he had some serious ops if he was strapped
Plenty of
up
big
like
moments
that.
in the
On
debate
like there were
tonight.
like
So joining
cops
us now
everywhere.
is former Congressman
Like,
Cedric
there's-
Richmond,
I
who's
don't
now
know.
co-chair
But,
for the Harris Walls campaign.
Like
Mr.
he just
Richmond,
walked
thank you so
in,
much for
looked
joining us. We
around,
appreciate
and then
it.
like talked
Heading
to
into
the
tonight's
clerk for like
debate, the
2
polls were
minutes, and
showing
like
that
me and
Kamala
like
Harris still needed
2 other
to tell
people
her
were
story.
looking
The
at him.
voters wanted to know more about
like
her
real
and the issues
suspect.
and where she stood on the
And they
positions
left.
that matter to the voters. How do you think she did tonight?
Well, I think
Oh, here we go.
But
How do you think she did
voters
tonight?
deserve to know the candidates that they're voting for, and I think she did an excellent job tonight, talking about not only her values but talking about her plan for the American people. And I think that was the big difference tonight. She
This
focused
was the
on
most disappointing
how do I
debate.
help Americans dealing with several challenges: the challenges of child
Yeah, I
care,
gained
the
absolutely
challenges
nothing
of
from it.
affordable housing, the challenges of rising grocery prices, and I think she addressed all of that. And I think the American people are giving her a fresh look, and I think she did an excellent job.
Donald Trump, the former president, says that she's a flip-flopper. She can't be trusted because her issues have evolved so much over the years. Do you think that she properly addressed that tonight?
Absolutely. I think that she hit it direct on and talked about, for example, with fracking and healthcare.
This is how
She said
most
she wouldn't ban
Americans get
fracking as vice
brainwashed.
president. She
This is
didn't
why I
ban
do not
fracking.
watch
She has
the
no
media.
intention on banning.
That's crazy
fracking.
that
When
they
she
just
talked
said
Oh
about
that
man,
she
it's
touched
crazy.
on all
I don't
the
even
points.
watch like
was always a
Fox. I don't
health
watch
issue.
anything.
A
I
right
get.
and not a
You know where I
privilege
get
just for
most
the
of my
rich. And she
news?
talked about how to expand
Either Twitter
healthcare.
or
So I
watching
think she did a
like
very good
unbiased
job of going into her
documentaries
policies
on
and how they align with her values as
on
growing
YouTube.
up in a
Dude, you get all your news
middle-class
from Lex
family.
Friedman.
And how
From
that
what?
relates to the families in the
Edward
United States
Snowden
right now.
is sending him
Oh,
this news.
Edward
Tonight, the
Snowden.
polls show that
It's
voters,
actually
for the most part,
Alex. Alex
trusted
is
Trump
sending him
more
the
on some
news.
key issues like
Usually I just
immigration
trust whoever goes
and
on
the
Joe
economy.
Rogan.
Kamala
Rogan.
Harris did not answer
Nah,
the
I
question
don't.
right
I
off the
think-
top of whether Americans are better
I have a
now
hard
than
time
they
with
were
Rogan
4
because you
years
can
ago
clearly
before Joe
tell
Biden
he's
took office. Is that going to be a continued
like he
problem?
Dude,
wants
Rogan's
to
had
be
some
something. Like
brain-dead
he
people.
wants to be something. Like he wants to be a certain way, but he
50% of the
can't because he
schools
has
in
to
this country were
appease not only his audience but the
10
person
million
he's
people
talking
were out of
to.
work.
So he can't be
You
like
had
on one side or
businesses
the
shut
other.
down, and now you have a resurgence.
I can't watch-
I'm with you 100%.
jobs
The
created,
people that watch these,
schools
dude, my
open.
grandparents
So
who
I
are
think
huge
what the vice
conservatives, they
president
watch
was doing,
Fox
she did a
from
good job of
9
doing,
a.m. to
was
fucking 9
articulating
p.m.
where we
It's like
started,
you gotta
where
watch
we are
something
now,
else.
and what
Gotta
her
get your news
plans
from.
and how it would
Honestly,
chart a
independent
new way
journalism is the
forward.
way to
And I
go.
think she did a good job of that.
Dude, I can't listen to Joe Rogan anymore because of
This is the candidates
uh,
talking about
he put on
each
Terrence
other's
Howard.
policies. Let's take a listen.
He put on
I
Terrence
don't say her
Howard,
because
and
she
he
has
literally
no policy.
tried to
Everything
reinvent
that
mathematics
she believed
by
3 years ago and
saying
4
it was
years ago
bullshit,
is out the window.
and then
She's going to my
released
philosophy. And in
a
fact, I was
a
gonna send her
doctoral
a MAGA hat.
dissertation that was just complete, utter nonsense.
So that's again to that same narrative here.
And then he went on for Joe Rogan to talk about it for 3 hours.
Do you believe? Are you confident that she is able to change
ABC's
this
moderators
narrative going
are a
forward? Clearly, the
disgrace to
voters
their
still want to know
profession.
more about her. They want to know where she stands. Do you think that she's
I
going
would
to be able to do that
absolutely
in the days and weeks ahead?
agree.
Yeah, I
So
think she
real
did a great
quick,
job
I'm gonna
of
give
it
some
tonight,
final
and part
thoughts.
of
I'm gonna
what it-
mute this. I want to say thank you to all of you. There's 2,000 of you here. It means a lot to me that you'd come out and watch my live stream, listen to my commentary, whether it was good or bad. I tried to give my thoughts as we were going. I tried to give thoughts during the intermission. But one thing's for sure, I think as Americans, we can all sit here and be kind of unpleased with what happened tonight. I feel like a lot of the issues we face day to day were not answered. I feel like there's a lot of emotional charge and a lot of bias. And I'll be fair and frank, no matter what side you're on, the job of a journalist is to give the news as it is or the facts as they are without bias. And, vice versa, if it happened to her, I would still say the same thing. I'm somewhat of moral ground. But I want to end this kind of with, I'm just very displeased with what happened tonight. I think that was the most disgraceful debate I think in human history, or not human history, American history. I feel like we have a lot of issues that we face day to day that were not answered or barely answered. And, as people that vote and pay for these people's salary, we literally pay taxes to these people so that they're, that they can be in office and run the country. It's their job to support the people, and I feel like I got none of that tonight. I feel like, or 10% of it. I don't want to say none. But, guys, thank you again for being here. I'll be live tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. We go over market analysis for any of you guys that are new here. I cover stock, crypto, financial analysis. That's what I do Monday, Wednesday, Friday around 5 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to learn something, come through. But as always, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your night. Get some sleep. But I do want to leave you with this. No matter who gets elected, the world's not going to end. We're still going to keep turning. Just keep on living.